Welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at adding a skill tree system to our game, and we're going to use this opportunity to discuss static programming versus dynamic programming. And one of the things about programmers is that we don't usually try to solve specific problems. Scripters do that. Scripters try to solve specific problems. Blueprints are usually very focused on solving a specific problem, but programmers don't really do that. What we try to do is we try to solve a whole family of problems all at once, and then use data to control how it solves it, right? And so it's a lot more useful because we've solved a whole family of problems, not a specific case. And I think skill trees are a good way of showing this, and maybe some of you will have a paradigm shift in your thinking about programming versus scripting. So first of all, I've thrown together a skill tree here that is using a static programming method. UMG is very good for static programming. It's not as much fun dynamic programming, which is why I've got about 30 hours into this video. But for static programming, you'd come in here, and probably a lot of you are used to this, you kind of build out what you want, right? You throw a border in here, some vertical box, let's put some text. You know, we've got our horizontal boxes and our buttons, and we'll give these some names. And then we'll come over here, and we'll connect what we want to do to each one of these buttons, right? So we're setting the style, right, as you're clicking them, and we're activating the buttons. And then we could come out here and have each button do what we wanted it to do, and, you know, increment or decrement the talent count and things like that. And this is an example of static programming, and I think it's a really poor choice for skill trees. Here's why. Doing it this method would require us to create a separate UMG widget for every one of our classes. And so right now we've got our Seraph and we've got our Seraph future, right? And so in the end, I want us to have two skill trees with different sets of abilities and stat increases and things like that. But I really don't want to have to build this thing twice. It's not fun building it once, but having to build it twice, you know. And that's only two, right? What about when we want to expand our game and we want to end up with 10 different classes? Now I got to build 10 of these UMG things. The widgets just start to be out of control, and you really run into the number one issue with blueprints. It's not performance. Everybody focuses on the performance. Blueprints don't have performance issues. That's not their problem. It's maintenance. Maintenance is the blueprint problem. You just can't handle the massive number. A computer program with 1 million lines is considered very, very small, tiny even. Yet I can't even imagine 1 million blueprint nodes. I just don't know how you would maintain it. And so when we're using blueprints, we always have to think about, you know, how can we make less to maintain. So we really don't want to build 10 of these skill trees. We want to build one and control it with data. Okay, so let me move this. This is my project where I build ahead. Move that back to the other screen. And this is our project, unmodified since the last time we loaded it. Okay, we're going to also have to start working with some organization here. We'll do some categories later because it's starting to get hard. Starting to get a bit hard to manage. Okay, so the basic idea here is that we need to build a system that dynamically generates our skill tree from data, right? So we want to throw some data at it and have it build the skill tree without us building it, right? So we don't want to build the skill tree. We don't want to build the UMG widget. We want it to build it for us. So we're going to need some data. So usually when I want some data, I'm going to start out here by building a, let's see, we're going to want a data table, but we first need to build a structure. Let's see, substance, forgot where this was for a second. Blueprints, structure, there we go. Okay, and let's call this skill tree skill. It's just one skill, and then we're going to have a data table which has rows of them. And so we bring this up here, And we're going to want to create some variables here. Pull this down. Okay, so first of all, our skills need a name, and we're also going to use this as the key. And it's just going to be a string. And then we need some icons. So we're going to have skill icon disabled. And these are going to be of type texture 2D reference. Skill icon hover texture 2D reference. And skill icon activated texture 2D reference. And finally, we need to know the row number, which is basically our tier, because we're going to create a tiered system eventually. We might not get to the tier rules today, but we are creating a tiered system. Okay, so now we've got this structure. Might come back and add some more stuff later, but this is going to get us going. And now we need to create a data table. So we come in here to miscellaneous, data table, and we pick our structure, skill tree skill. And we'll call this Serif skill tree. We're basically creating one of each of one skill tree per one skill tree per class, right? So each skill tree that we want, we're going to create one data table for it. Okay, so we're going to open this up, and we're going to want to add a row, and the row name here is going to be the key, and the first one's going to be strength. That'll also be the skill name. It's going to be, we're doing zeros because C++ is zero based. And so we always start numbers at 0, not 1. I'm going to have to come import these icons. So let's save that and go do that. That is a good, okay, so I forgot to do something here. The icons are going to be included in a link on the video, and we're going to have to download those in advance. Let's see. I thought I already put them in here. Map tile, source, content, icons. Here we go. Okay, so there's going to be a zip file, and you're going to download that from the YouTube video, and we're going to import those in. And special thanks to Smarte for whipping these up for me. It saved me a lot of time. And so I'm going to create a folder for these icons. Yeah, we should just be able to drag these right in. And we should come in here, and we should change the texture group to UI. We'll go do that real quick. It's going to change how it builds bitmaps, which it really doesn't need for the UI. It's definitely not part of the world. I thought the icons turned out pretty nice. Every time I go looking for free icons, I can never find exactly what I'm looking for. So having them custom built was quite nice. And then once we finish this, we're going to go into our I really wanted to rename them. These are poorly named, but it's okay. So the disabled one is the one with the 2 on the end. Would help if I could spell. Okay, so this unselected 2 is going to be the disabled. Unselected is going to be the hover. See, it's kind of hovered. And then the base name there is the activated. Okay, so we've got that one. And our next ability here, we'll hit the plus sign. Put in the key. Not doing good with the keyboard tonight. This one's going to be on tier 1. And we're going to type jump. And again, the unselected 2. I know these names are bad. I meant to rename them before I started. It's okay. And finally, our third skill tree icon here is going to be our light grenade. And we're actually going to have a space in the name for the skill name, but we are going to remove the space for the row name. That's important. Make sure you get that. And that's also in tier 1. We're basically creating a single in tier 0 and then 2 in tier 1. You can make a choice. And we're going to type light grenade unselected 2, light grenade unselected, and light grenade. Okay, so now we've got our data table built with our skill tree, skill, structure, and now we're going to need to build some widgets. So, first up, we need to go to, let's see, user interface, widget, and we're going to call this skill tree icon widget. And we're going to drop down a border, and we're going to drop down an image. No, not an image. No, this one's actually a button. Okay, and we're going to name this button icon. And I think we got some special settings here, so let me take a look. Okay, so for the border, I've selected the border, and I want 104 by 64, and that's because of the padding. And this was fun to get it to center. And for the padding here, we're going to do 0, 0, 40, 0. And the tint is going to have a 0 on alpha, so it's see-through. We don't want a solid color behind it. And I think that's going to be good enough for the border. And now we move on to the icon. And let's see, so 0, 0, 40, it inherited it. That looks good. We're setting all of this manually, so we don't have to set it up ahead of time. Remember, it's going to build it for us. I think that's good to go for that. And now we come over to the graph. Okay, so we need to build a few functions. We need a setup icon. We need a flip icon status. And we need a set icon activated. Okay, so let's take a look at setup icon. We need to add some inputs. So the first one is going to be a texture 2D object reference. And it's going to be normal. And we're going to create 2 more of those. And we've got normal, hovered, pressed. Then we're going to need a string. We need to pass in the skill name. And we're going to need to know whether it's set as activated. So, set as activated. And bada booling. Okay. We're also going to need to come back into the designer here, and this border needs to get turned into a variable. And we'll come back here. There we go. Need that to show up. Now we're going to add some variables. We need to keep track of whether it's activated. We need to keep track of the skill name, which is going to be a string. And we're going to need 2 slate brush structures. So this is going to be unselected hover. It's going to be a slate brush. And then we need, just because of the way we're swapping these, this one doesn't have a direct swap, and so we have to cache them. So we've got that. Okay. Let's see. Why did we... Did I lose my inputs? Oh. Bummer. I was on the wrong one. Ah! Okay. We're dumping all these. Okay, I was on set icon activated there. That was a mistake. We want to make sure we're on setup icon. I'm going to have to do it again. Okay, texture. Reference, and this was normal. Create 2 more. Hovered, pressed. Then we've got skill name as a string, and we've got set as activated as a bool. Okay, so now we can take this data and we're going to want to set these. Set. And we're going, for each one of these, we're going to make brush from texture. And we'll put in a 64 for these because that's the icon size we're using. And there, and a third one. So this will convert them to a texture, a brush, so they're usable. And let's see, this one here goes to unselected, and this bottom one goes up to selected. And we're also going to make button style. And this one goes to normal, so that's why we named them this. Pressed. And we're not actually using a disabled, so we don't need that. And then what we're going to do is we want this button icon, that's why we made it a variable. And we're going to set style. By the time we get done with this, it's all going to be pretty convoluted. But unfortunately, that is a limitation of UMG. It is not the best for doing dynamic. A lot of this stuff would be significantly easier in C++. Set cursor. That's why it took me so long to figure this out. So yeah, when we're hovering over it, we want our cursor to be a hand. Give that a nice look. That's also pulled off the button icon. We do want to cache the skill name. So we're going to set that. And we're also going to set our activated, get that status set to the initial value, because we are going to be loading them from the database, so they may start as activated or start as not activated. And then we're going to call set icon activated, but we actually want to branch. And since the default's going to be not activated, we only want to do that if this was activated on true. Okay, so we got that one. Let's take a look at set icon activated. So we're changing to set icon activated, and we're going to want to pull down our button icon and widget style. Widget. Okay, it might be break. Interesting. Hold on a second. An icon. Trying to remember how I pulled this off. Get. Huh. Button object reference. Button object reference. Oh. That was the base class. I bet it's button style. No, it's set style. Which we do want, so we'll leave that. What we need to do is we need to break. Come back over here to the designer. Did we do anything special? No. Very interesting why I can't... get style. Yeah. It's hard to figure out sometimes what you dragged off. Not all of them are real easy to figure out. So it was basically pull off button icon type style, and it's this get style that'll return our widget style structure. So that's that one right there. Okay, we're going to break this. And then we're going to make one to plug into here. And what we're basically going to do is we're going to swap these because we're setting it activated. So we're going to take the pressed to the normal to the pressed. And then we're going to pull this one out. This is why I said we had to grab this. Technically, we could probably pull that one across, but we can't on one of our later ones. So we'll just do it this way. It's a little easier to read. And connect this. Okay. So that's going to set our initial state. Now we need to do our flip icon status. Okay, and we're going to use the activated to decide which way to flip it. And the reason we made this one a variable, or a function, is that set icon activated. There we go. Now you'll notice this seems backwards on the true and false, but it's what the previous value. So it's just the timing of when it's changed. So if it was false and then you're going to be changing it, now it's setting to active because you're setting it to true. It's a little weird because it's backwards, but with Boolean values that is often the case. We're actually going to come over here so I don't have to deal with that mess again. We're going to copy those. So I'm copying and pasting because we need to do the same thing again. Okay, and we'll break button style. And we're going to add another. Oh, got to drag off the button icon. Set style. There we go. Oops. And we're going to make this style. Expand it. And we're going to do the same thing. Normal to pressed, pressed to normal. We're basically flipping them. And then we are going to bring our unselected hover and drag it down here. So it sets that. So that was that other cached one that we set up on the setup icon. Okay. So our icon's looking pretty good, except for our event graph. Okay. So for our event graph here, we do want to come into our designer and our button icon. And we want it on-clicked. There we go. And then we also want to create a custom event that I call toggle skill icon. Make it because we got to call it from somewhere else. And that one's going to do flip icon status, and it's also going to set this activated. Thought about combining them into one, but based on the name of it, I've got them flipped. I've got separated here. Get activated, and we'll use a not. So by using the not here, we're basically just saying, hey, do the opposite. If it was true, make it false. If it was false, make it true. Okay, that one looks good. And here we're going to have to get owning player. It's confusing because it's called get owning player. It is the player controller. They really should have put that in the name. I know that one confuses a lot of people. Cast to third person player controller. We can do that here. Only UI is only used for the player. And we don't yet have a function to call here. So we have to wait on that. We have to wait on that one. And we're going to have to move on to our next thing, which is our skill tree row widget. Okay, so we got our icon. Now I need some rows to put it into. So user interface, widget blueprint. And we've got skill tree row widget. Okay, we're going to do the same thing, use a border. And that border is not a variable, but it's going to get a size of 450 by 64. It needs horizontal alignment center. And it needs no padding. And we need to come in here to tint and make it see-through. Okay. And next we need to add a row, which is going to be a horizontal. So we scroll down here to horizontal box, drag it to here. We need this to be a variable, and we're going to call it skill tree row. So basically what we're end up doing here is looping through an array, adding as many rows as we need, and then adding the icons to the rows. So we're just building the individual pieces that we need. So we come to this horizontal box and see, okay, no padding, horizontal alignment, it inherited, got that. It doesn't look like we have to do anything else. But as you can see here, I named the wrong one. Got to be careful where you're set. Just setting that back to border 0. It's not a variable. Let's uncheck that. And let's go to the horizontal box, make it a variable. Call it skill tree row. Okay. So now I got that. So now we need our main UMG widget. And skill tree widget. See if I can not get confused here. I have mine called skill tree dynamic widget because I made 2 versions of the other one. So make sure I don't get confused here. We're opening this one up, and we're going to start again with a border. And on that border, we're going to anchor it to the top right. We're going to do minus 510, 110, 500, 500. And padding's fine, but we're going to come in here. Let's see if this works or not. No! I hate what that does. So sometimes this will let you drop down the list, and sometimes it won't. I haven't completely figured out why. It was listed as an error in UE4 at one time, but I thought they fixed it, but haven't noticed that yet. Anyway, we can scroll down to our OWS plugin content, our UMG, our texture, and if you select it here, then you can use this to select it, even though the other thing wasn't going to let us. So it's kind of strange. I also noticed that when that box pops up like that, if I have Visual Studio open, it usually throws a fault. And so something's going on there. I don't know exactly what's wrong with the editor, but if you ever get that weird thing, see, now it's fine. But if you get that weird thing where it won't let you select it, just remember that you can use this to select whatever you have down in your palette. So one way to get around that. Took me a while to figure that out. Vertical box. So we're going to drop in a vertical box. And I don't think we need to do anything on that one. And then we need some text. And we'll just put in this text. Skill tree. And let's see, I think I did, we'll pad it by about 20 on the top. And we'll center it. And we'll change it to black. I guess we'll take the defaults. That's fine. Okay, next thing we need is another horizontal box. Dropping it in the vertical box so it goes directly underneath. And I don't think we need, let's see. I think, oh, no. The horizontal box needs to be centered. Zero padding should do. And this is going to hold two things. We want some text underneath the horizontal box. And we also want a second thing of text underneath the horizontal box. And the first one is just going to say talent points. Okay, then we'll make it black. And I think we want to drop it down to say 18. And obviously we've got a padding problem here. So going back to the text that says skill tree, it's supposed to have a bottom and top padding of 20. There we go. And now we're going back to, that looks good. And then this text block here can start out empty. This one's going to be a variable. And it's going to be called number of talent points. We've got to have somewhere that shows how many talent points we've got. And we want that black to match. And we also want it type 18. And I think that's good. So you can't see it there until we fill the number. And then we're going to need another vertical box to hold our content. Okay, so we dropped it inside the vertical box, so it lines up like that. And this one is also going to be a variable, and we're going to call it content box. And we're going to give it some padding, 25 to the left, 25 to the right, 25 to the bottom. And I think that's all we need. Okay, and that's where we're going to start filling in our rows and our icons. So that's looking pretty good. Now I need to go into our graph, and we need to add some functions. So add skill tree row, and add skill to row. Switch back to add skill tree row. And this one does not take any parameters. This one does a create widget and skill tree row widget. Automatically pulls the owning player. And from here we're going to set some padding. To make some margins, and we needed to put 30 at the top. For some reason setting this early wasn't working. I had to actually set it in real time as we're creating it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab our content box and we're going to say add child. This is how you add something to it. Okay, and what we're adding is what we just created. Okay, so basically what we're doing here, we're creating a instance of our skill tree row widget. We are setting this padding before we add it, and then we're adding it. Pretty simple. And now I've got add skill tree. What? Oh, I did the same thing. Clicking this doesn't do it. Okay. Did it again. Okay, so picking this does not select which one's open. You have to use this at the top. So I'm going to Control X, move over to skill tree row. I wondered how I accidentally did that last time. I was like, I thought I had the right one selected, but over here is not good enough. Got to select up here. Now we're going to go to add skill to row. And this one has some parameters. So we'll select this box. And our first parameter is going to be our row number. We have to know which row number. And it is an integer. Oh, it's just right there. And our second one is going to be skill name. And it's a string. And then we need to send in some texture. .2D. Object reference. And the first one's going to be called hovered icon. We'll create two more. And we've got pressed. Wait. The first one is not hovered icon. First one is normal icon. Then hovered icon, which it already thinks exists. Okay, when that happens, you got to compile and save, and then you can get yours back. Otherwise, you won't be able to create it because it already thought it existed. So that compile and save is going to reset that. It's another fun thing you run into every once in a while. Sometimes the editor gets confused. Okay, and the final one is set activated. I feel like I've spelled some of these wrong. We'll find out. Okay, so the first thing we do is get content box. We do get child at. So this lets us use an index, which is our row number, to get the right one. Then we can cast to skill tree row widget. Figuring out some of these gets and these casts were not fun. What I've realized is that you had to drop a border into every one of those, or they wouldn't work. I don't know why they had to have a border as a parent. It was kind of weird, but that one took a while to figure out. Okay, we're going to grab skill tree row. Okay, and then we're going to need to create widget. And now since we're working with a row, we want to create the icon. So skill tree icon widget. And we want to call setup icon. Okay, and here's where we want to pull in, I should have reordered those to be in a nice order. We're basically matching these up. Normal, hovered, pressed, and it's going to set up our icon for us. And then we want to set tooltip text. So when you hover over it, it shows the name. I thought that was kind of a nice touch, even if it looks bad. And we're going to grab that skill name. And we'll drag this down over here. Okay, and then finally we also need to here on the skill tree row, add child to horizontal box. Actually, this was probably the weird one, where if I just did add child, it didn't work. Anyway, UMG is a bit confusing as to the structure behind it. I'm sure if you know the structure completely, it probably becomes a whole lot easier, but... And this is where we're going to take the skill icon widget here and send it there to be added. And then after it's added, we have to set the horizontal alignment to center to get these icons to center up nicely. Okay, that looks pretty good. So we got that covered. Okay, we're good there. Okay, we got our widget, we got our row, we got our icon. Okay, so now we just got to start building this out. So let's start with the player controller. So we know blueprints, third-person player controller, and we're going to go to the event graph. Okay, and we need to create a custom event here, and it's going to be called skill tree change, in which case we are going to grab my character. Whoa. Okay. And this is what happens when the project I was working in is slightly different than this project. Okay. Let me think about this. Yeah. Okay. For now, we're going to do get controlled pawn. I'm going to cast to cast third-person character abilities. In my other project, I have it cached. We might come back and replace that later. But I did not know that wasn't in this project. And we're going to grab premium currency. And what we're going to do here is we need to create a skill tree widget of type skill tree widget reference. Okay, we also need to create the skill tree that we want to use. So it's going to be called skill tree, and this is a data table reference. Okay, and we also need to create, we've got to cache this one value. It was a little ugly. Last skill icon toggled. This allows us not to have to call back and forth a ton, and we just need the skill tree icon widget reference. Skill tree icon widget reference. Okay. So now we grab our skill tree widget, and we pull off that number of talent points, and we're going to set text. So this is after it changes. We need to, so yeah, by the way, we're going to be using this premium currency. I don't think we're going to use it for anything else. This isn't going to be a free-to-play game. It's not going to be an anything-to-play game. So we're going to use this premium currency. It was just a variable that was unused. It's already set up. It loads and saves from the database, which is what we need. And so we're going to use that as a way to store how many talents we have. And we'll go in and set that up later. Okay, so we got the skill tree change set up. I think that was the only thing in the event graph. But we're going to be adding some new functions. So we're going to add a function here called rebuild skill tree. And I'm going to start using these categories because it's getting a little bit hard to keep everything organized. So you can see here it creates this category, and later we can pick it from the drop down after we compile and save. Okay. And I also need a click skill tree icon. Also put that in skill tree. And I need another function called toggle skill tree icon. Now it might seem like what we're doing here is a bit convoluted the way we're going to bounce between these. But the reason is that I want to do the replication with the RPC call. I want to do that in the character. I like to do all of my networking stuff in the character. And so we're going to bounce back and forth to be able to do that. Okay, so yeah, I guess let's jump into the rebuild. So, rebuild skill tree. Let's not do that, and let's actually make sure we're on the right tab. Select this, and our input is skill, it's a string, and it's going to be called skill tree serialized. So we're going to basically separate the skills that we have by semicolons. And so because of that, we're going to parse into array, and we're going to need a temporary local variable. So if you scroll down to the bottom here, these are only inside rebuild skill tree. We don't want to pollute this here. We want this local variable. We're going to call it skills. And it is going to be a string, and we're going to change it to an array. And now we're going to set that value. We probably could do it without the temporary variable, but it makes it easier to read. This one's going to get a little long. Okay, so inside this delimiter, we want just a semicolon. Make sure there's no spaces. Okay, we're going to do get control pawn. And we're going to cast to third-person character with, no. We're going to cast to OWS character. So this is a case where, when possible, I only cast as high as I need the value. And the value we need here, of course, is the premium currency. We're still in the player controller, and we need to jump over to the character to get the premium currency. And this sets that same thing we toggled over here. Let's see here. We may be able to simplify this a little bit. So in our event graph, that is the exact same code. Sweet. Okay. So we're actually able to simplify this. And we're going to be able to call skill tree change. So I had the same thing in two places. So that's gonna probably yeah, it's probably gonna work. I don't see any issue with that. But I do want to come back here and fix this to OWS character. I don't want to have to cast further. than what I need to get the value. It can help sometimes when you have to change things later. Okay, I'm going to grab these two because I do still need those again over here. We didn't get out of not having to use those. And let's see, I need from skill tree widget, I need content box. And we're going to clear the children because this is a rebuild. So we're basically totally refreshing. It is easier to refresh and rebuild than it is to attempt to figure out what's there and what's not there. Okay. And from here, add skill tree row. Okay. I see a problem. I see a problem. Okay. Yeah. I didn't turn the skill tree row adding dynamic. You know what? We're going to come fix that later. So this is not good what we're doing right here, but this is going to be a multi-part. We'll come back and fix this. So normally what we'd want to do here is we want to loop the number of times that there are rows, but I did not write a function to get the max number of rows from the data table. So we're hard coding it to 2. This is not good. We'll come fix this later. The icons, though, are going to be dynamic. So we're going to take our skill tree, and we're going to do get data table row names. And we're going to create a for each loop. Okay. And then we're going to, inside this, we're going to grab the skill tree again, and we're going to do get data table row. We're going to look that up using each row name. Okay, so we're looping through. And we're going to... Okay, so this here is this thing builds on its own. And so it's not going to build if we plug a variable into it. So we actually have to come here and pick Sarah's skill tree, compile. Now we'll get the right output, and then we can come here and select the skill tree. It's kind of weird, just because of the way they build those blueprint nodes to auto-build the output. Wait. Why is that complaining? Oh, hold on. I may have had to go here, and I may have to break this output. Yeah, I'm seeing a problem we're going to run into later. I didn't notice that before what it was doing, because it didn't throw any errors. Yeah, get data table row. Yuck. Oh no, it's good. No, it's good. Skill tree skill. I thought this said Seraph in the name. It's skill tree skill, so we're good. It'll be the same for all of them. Okay, cool. I just want to make sure it wasn't hard-coded to that data table. It's weird the way it doesn't pick that up on its own. I guess because the data table, yeah, the data table doesn't know what type. Anyway, you got to do that in a certain order. Kind of weird. Okay, so all the way back to here. Yeah, you know what? Let's grab it again. Skill tree widget. And we're going to add skill to row. And the row number is here. So that'll find the right row for us. The skill name goes here. And we plug in these icon references. Okay, we're pulling out of the data table. Remember, back over... guess we closed that. Back over here, we had this data table, right? So we're pulling these values out of it, and we're building this one by one, right? The only part we did wrong here is that we hard-coded it to 2 rows, which we have here because we have tier 0 and tier 1. So what we will come back later and do is we'll do an extra loop through all these rows and figure out what the maximum row number is, and then we'll actually add 1, and then we'll loop through and build these. Make sure. Okay, this is not being used. Number of talent points, we can dump that. Okay. And we need to do this set activated. So to do that, what we have to do is we have to ask our, this is why we created this variable. We have to say, does the skills contain the item that we just looped through? Because we're looping through all the items, and we want to see, do we have it or not, right? So that's going to set whether it's activated or not. So this skills is the skills that our player has activated, and then here we're looping through every single one, and the ones where it's contained, it'll set activated, and so that'll start it the right way. Okay, click skill tree icon. Make sure we change it up at the top. Okay, so this one's going to need some variables. We need to send the skill name. We need to send activated. And we need to send last skill icon. And this was a skill tree icon widget object reference. Okay, first thing we do is we need to cache this. This saves us a call later. Oops. Ha! Never seen it do that before, but I did not want that. Interesting. You can just drag it to it and it adds it. They keep adding new stuff in the blueprint editor. Okay. And yeah, we don't have this one yet. We're gonna have to come back to this here. We're gonna do get control on, and we gotta go all the way cast to third person character with abilities. But there's a there's something here we got to call that we didn't make yet. So we're going to have to come back to that one. And then our toggle skill tree icon. Okay, so this is where we needed our cached one, and we're going to use an isValid. In case it has not been cached, we do not want to do what we're going to do here because we need it. And we're going to say toggle skill icon. That was that event we made. And I guess we could have made that as a function. Yeah, it was a mistake. Not happy with that. I usually only create it as events if I have to, because there's some things you can't do in functions. Okay. And then, man, gotta get the character again. Let's go find somewhere to copy that from. Okay, copying this again. Oh wait. Room currency, return points. Aha! You can use that again. Yeah, there was a reason that I had created that because I knew we were using it in multiple places, but I just didn't update my project yet to use them, so I've got the same key copied all over the place. I want to put a comment around this one. Update number of talents left. Might think of changing the name on that. Okay. So that'll toggle the skill tree icon here. It calls that, it calls this. We're good to go. So now we need to go to our third person character, which is where we're going to do all of the we're going to do all of the RPC calls. Let's scroll down here to the bottom of our event graph. And for client, yeah. So I've got some controller caching. I'll leave that to a later video. Okay, so I want to create a custom event, and it's going to be request, because it's all about asking if you can, right? So what makes this complicated is that we're not just letting the client click the button. The client can only click the button if the server says they can click the button. And so to do that, we have to send some data here. So the first one's going to be skill name that we want to activate. We're sending a request up to the client to ask if we can do it. Activated. Okay. So this is just a non-replicated call, but now we're going to create the server replicated. So what I do is I like to do server underscore, so it's easy to know. Request skill tree activation. Okay, and this is running on the server reliable. Okay, and it needs those same two things that we have to send up for the request. So we have to send skill name, and we have to send activated. And you might be wondering why we're doing this twice, and the reason is that we're going to make this call from the player controller. So it needs this to call, which will stay on the same side, but then it'll jump up to the server here. So we're going to call server, request skill tree activation, and we're going to send these values. So we're sending these up to the server and saying, hey, they want to activate or deactivate the skill name. Are they allowed to do it? Okay. So we always want to do a switch has authority. In this case, it can't be remote, but I still throw it in there just to remind myself. So because it says server here, it actually has to be authority. But I find that I often am forgetting what's on what side, and if I see it here pulled off authority, I'll know what it is. So don't have to do that if you don't want to, but it's something I have found helps over time. Okay. And here we can just grab premium currency directly. This is the one on the server side. And we want to ask the question, is it greater than 0? Do they have any talents? Okay. This one is the activated, so this one is also whether they want to activate it or not. So in this case, actually it's backwards. So false means they want to activate it, true means they don't. And so we're going to increment, if they're deactivating it on true, then we are going to increment, we're going to give them a talent point back, right? Otherwise, if they were trying to activate it on false, we're going to check, hey, did they pass the test? If so, we're going to subtract from them. And then we've got some functions we need here. So, let's add some functions. Save skill tree. Add skill to skill tree. Serialized. Remove skill from skill tree. Serialized. And update skills per tier. Actually, that's going to be the next video, but we've created it here. I'm going to close that one. I don't want to mess with that right now. Okay, I want to come here and I want to create a new category. Skill tree. And skill tree. Skill tree. And skill tree. And you know what? This video is taking a lot longer than I thought. We may actually have to split this into some more, videos, because it's already 12:24. Okay. Let's stop here at this part, but I want to actually... is there anything I can show? Maybe. Let's see if there's anything we can show. I don't like to finish a video and not show something. So let's come back to our player controller, and we'll go to our event graph, and this skill tree widget here we never... we got to come here and build it. Create widget. It's on begin play. So if you see where I'm at here, I came here on this second line of this begin play in the player controller. Skill tree widget. And we're going to set skill tree widget. So that'll build it and set the reference. And then I think we can go to our input graph. I'm hoping we can just get it to load at our stopping point here, because this video is already getting long and there's still a lot left. Okay. We need to create a new input action. Project settings, input, action mapping, toggle, skill tree. For now I stuck it on the K. Button. And back to here. Okay, so toggle skill tree. And we'll let it do once. Okay, and we want to flip flop. Then we want to grab our skill tree widget, and we want to do add to viewport, and we want to do remove from parent, but we need something we don't have. Okay, we're going to create just this value because we need it, and we'll load some fake data in it. So we're going to over a third-person character with abilities, and we're going to create skill tree serialized. Okay, and this is the type string. This is what we're saving and loading back and forth from the database, and we're going to set this to skill tree, and we're going to set it to replication notify, but owner only. Okay. And then I think that for now, just for fun, let's throw in strength as a default value, and that should be good enough for coming over here and doing a get controlled pawn as to third-person character abilities. And it's only going to do this on side A. And then we're going to say get skill tree serialized. And we're going to plug that into rebuild skill tree. So we're basically rebuilding it each time we open it. Okay, and then this B one's going to go to hiding. Okay, Let's make sure we set our skill tree to Sarah. We did not, so let's come in there and set Sarah's skill tree. And the odds that this works are low, but let's give it a try. I'm sure we forgot something. Oh, wow, I'm impressed. So you see it loaded the strength one there, right? So if we go in there, just to show you, if we go back over here, where we have this value, and we do strength slash jump, or I'm sorry, not slash. This was semicolon, if you can't see it. Strength, semicolon, jump, and now we do this again. You can see that it rebuilds those. And there is a minor mistake. Hold on. We want to come back over to the player controller, and after these here, we want to do set UI mode, and for this one we want cursor checked, and it's the optional widget, and for this one we don't want an optional widget and we want it unchecked. I wasn't getting my cursor. Okay, so we've basically shown how we can dynamically build these. It's probably actually going to, yeah, we still have to finish. We don't have the rest of the clicking working, but I just want, and we don't have the talent points loading and saving, and we don't have the serialized loading and saving. So we're going to take a look at that next time. This has already gotten pretty long, but you can see here that it built these from looping through that data table. So if we wanted to go and add some more tiers, and we wanted to add some more icons, wanted to add 3 here, or 3 here, or different ones, we could do that just by adding rows in the database. And I just thought of something, since we have to edit those later. I don't know if you can reorder the rows. We might add a sort order to go across. So we've got some fun stuff we can do there. So in the next video, which hopefully I'll do tomorrow, we will come back and we'll finish loading this. We'll finish getting all the clicking working, and all that. But I'm going to stop here for right now because this one's gotten pretty long, and it's probably going to be a 10 gig upload. So it might take a little while here. But until next time, see ya.